Hey, sweet friends, and welcome back to another episode of It's a Beautiful Day to Homeschool. I'm so glad you're here. For those of you who are new to the show, this podcast is for new homeschool families and for those of you in those precious elementary years who just want to do this well and without all the overwhelm. Around here, I believe homeschooling doesn't have to look like school at home. It can be gentle, meaningful, and built around your everyday life. Each episode, I'll talk about the simple teaching rhythms, early learning, building confidence as a new homeschool parent, and creating days that feel peaceful instead of pressured. Whether you're just starting out or finding your footing, you'll find encouragement, practical ideas, and a reminder that you're not alone. So today's episode, it is going to be a little bit of a long one, but I feel like it's a very important one. So take a deep breath, grab your coffee, and let's build a homeschool life that feels joyful and doable. It's truly, it is a beautiful day to homeschool. So today's episode is about public school to homeschool. It's all about the mindset, and it really is. Now, let me start off by saying I have always homeschooled my kids. So my kids have never been into a public school system, but with being an academic homeschool counselor for the last 4 years, I've come to hear the stories of what kids are like when they stop public school and when they come to homeschooling. And it's also for the parents as well. So it's not always a smooth transition. Sometimes there's going to be some hiccups. So you do have to kind of keep in mind that with bringing your students home, it's going to feel a little strange, especially the first morning of school. Now, if you've had your summer break and you're like, hey, it's time to start up school, again, this is what we're going to use. It may not be as bad as bringing them home in the middle of the year, but they're so used to being rushed out the door to catch a bus or get to school. They're used to having their book bags and all the homework and the schedules and the school bells and all that good stuff. And we don't have that. We don't. I mean, we still may have schedules, but we don't have the rest of it. And then, once you do get them home, that's kind of when the parents tend to get a little nervous or panic. Are they far? Are they going to fall behind? Are they behind? I'm not qualified to teach them. Are they just going to sit around and play video games all day? Which, that one, kind of a touchy subject in my house. My kids are very limited to the amount of screen time they're allowed to have, especially in the summertime when it's nice because they need to be outside. But that's for a whole nother day. Anyway, so in today's podcast, I'll kind of cover homeschooling is not just doing school at home. It's really not. Also, we'll talk about how the first transition is mental and not academic. And then we're going to talk about deschooling because I feel like deschooling is very important, not only to the kids, but to the students as well. So some of you may have heard the word deschooling before, some of you may not. But deschooling is just that adjustment period after leaving an institutional school, like a private school or a public school. And again, like I said, this is for both parents and kids. So deschooling, I think, is one of the most important things and one of the most overlooked parts of the homeschooling journey. When your child leaves that traditional school setting, they don't just leave behind the building and the schedules. They carry with them the habits that they've already built, the expectations that is put on them each and every year, and often a belief that learning only counts if it looks a certain way. Deschooling gives your child the time and the space to let go of that mindset and begin to rediscover what learning actually looks like. So they're going to start getting that curiosity back. They're going to have the time and the flexibility to do so, and they may actually start enjoying schooling again if they were starting to lose that joy being in a traditional school setting. So for many of the kids, especially those who struggled or felt kind of discouraged in that traditional in the traditional schools, I feel like deschooling is where the healing begins. It allows them to rebuild the confidence without all the pressures of their peers, the pressures of their teachers, the pressures for the grades, pressures for the timelines and the schedules, and the pressure of the comparison. So I don't think as a parent or even a student at that time, decades ago, of when I was in public school, of how much pressure was really on me when I was in public school. And I see that now, and I see that I don't want my kids to have that much pressure on them every day. They would crack, they would break, and I don't want that. And so I feel like deschooling is so important, not just for the kids, but for the parents, because Deschooling starts building that relationship with your student again. Your students are used to being, the bus picking them up or being dropped off at the school. A teacher's teaching them all day long. They're held to a certain standard while at school. And then they come home and they are rushed to do their homework. They are rushed to a sport. They are rushed for dinner, and then they are rushed off to bed. And that's a normal life for a public or private school child. It's normal. But when we bring them home, we have that time, the time that we can take to be with our kid, to learn from our kids, have our kids learn from us, and let those real life conversations flow. You'll start seeing the conversations start at breakfast. They'll go through lunch. And by golly, if you're all sitting down as a family at dinner table, the questions are going to start flowing then. It gives their minds time to just kind of woof. And it can be a great thing, and it can sometimes be a tough thing, especially depending on your kid's age. You could be going through that whole why phase. And that's why I say it just depends on the phase you're going through, because if you've got littles at home and they have the time to think, it's, why does this do this? Why does this do this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I have a love-hate relationship with that phase. I love the fact that they asked all the whys because they wanted to know, but I was really annoyed by all the whys. But deschooling is so great for our kids. Now, a timeline for that, there's no real set timeline. You just kind of need to feel it out. I believe that a week off per year that they were in a traditional or in a traditional school setting. So if you have a second grader, don't be afraid to take 2 to 3 weeks off. And I know that's kind of scary because you're like, what are we going to do in this 2 to 3 weeks? They can't be bored. They need something to do. Let them be bored. You'd be surprised at what all their little mind comes up with and what they want to create. But take that time and take them to the library. Take them on a field trip. Go outside and do something different during the day. They're so used to being in school. Take them outside. Make lunch together and have a little picnic outside. Go for a nature walk. Go ride bikes. Go fishing. Just something completely out of the norm. If they want to take a nap, by golly, everybody take a nap. Now that one I've never had happen, even though I would have loved it. But that deschooling, again, it's super important. It shows your kids that you have the flexibility, you have the freedom. To kind of show me, one, how you learn, to show me what you're interested in, what are your hobbies, what do you want to learn about. And the great thing about it is you can tailor their curriculum around what they want to do. So like my daughter, who is 9 at this moment, for the last year and a half, she wants to be a veterinarian. That has been her thing. So we've taken the last 2 years, and for science, we've done zoology. She wants to learn everything she can about the animal. So we've gotten the library books, we've gone to the zoos, we've watched the videos on YouTube. We try and find different animals in our creeks and in our ponds and in our backyard, and here, there, and everywhere. We have that freedom and flexibility, folks, to be able to take the joy and the interest that our children have and hone in on it. We do, because it all counts. So you can work on that in that deschooling phase. Now, deschooling, again, is not just for the kids, it's for the parents. I know the parents get scared because they start with that whole, am I failing my kids? I'm not qualified to teach them? What if they fall behind? That kind of thing. First off, who's going to be more qualified than you to be and teach your kids and raise your kids and guide your kids? Parents are best. Who are they going to be behind? I don't know. Who are you comparing them to? And we don't compare them. So get that straight out of your mind. But another fear that parents have is we fear the responsibility of having to teach and guide our kids. We worry about the social interactions and the social judgment, not just from our peers, but also from our family sometimes. We fear, what happens when they do graduate. Our college is going to accept them. What's the future look like for a homeschool child? And I'm here to tell you that, my husband, again, was homeschooled all the way through. We've only had one slight issue from a previous job when he came out of the military. So my husband went all 12 years, homeschooled, went into the military. He decided to be a coal miner. And that was the only hiccup is that was the first time that they've ever seen a homeschool transcript and a homeschool diploma. And so they just needed a letter, which HSLDA, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, helped us out with that. And then we've never had any issues since. And so it's like, yes, you may run into a bump here and there, but it's not going to be a big one. And honestly, if you have a college nearby and you called them up and said, hey, I'm homeschooling my child, what's the chances of them getting in? They're going to be excited for you. Colleges absolutely love homeschool children because they're not just taught to a certain standard. They're taught to their interests. They're taught to, what they want to learn and what they want to be. Their whole high school education can be tailored around them. So if they wanted to be a veterinarian, we can tailor their high school, those 4 years, to preparing them for college for being a veterinarian. So when they get there, they're already a step ahead of the rest. And so colleges absolutely love that. So no worries there. Now, when I say sometimes when we bring our kids home, it's a little hard on them, and why deschooling is so important. I think some of this is they have mixed feelings about being home. They miss their friends. They sometimes miss the structure. Depending on their age, if they're going through that wonderful puberty stage, they might be going from one identity shift to another. Because I know when I was in school, yes, I tried to fit in. I also wanted to be myself, but I wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be that lone child or the lone student who didn't have very many friends. Well, when you're a homeschool student, who are you fitting in with? You finally get a chance to really be yourself. So that's one great thing. And then also they need time to rest. They need time for their brains to just and get those breaks during the day. So deschooling often looks unproductive before it will look transformative. So it's going to look like the kids aren't doing very much in that deschooling break. I promise it will be worth it. You're going to build that strong relationship with your child again. You're going to see how they learn. You're going to see what their interests are. You can take that time and maybe find a co-op if you want to, or some kind of, Facebook groups are great for having homeschool field trips. I love those kind of groups. So take that time and kind of find those things as well. But again, parents also need to deschool as well. Because like I said in the beginning, it's all about the mindset. It really is. So when you get them home and you do start into your schooling, don't immediately recreate school, a full day of school at home. Because that's not what it is. It's not. And I know I've said in my previous videos, I took my spare bedroom, I put 2 desks in there. I decorated it like a full-blown kindergarten classroom, and my kid hated it. Absolutely hated it. They felt trapped in there because, again, from a public school mindset, they needed to be at a desk to learn. It wasn't that they could be outside. They had to be at a desk, and that is not how it is, folks. It's not. So don't immediately start recreating a traditional school setting at home. It will ruin this experience for you. I mean, you can take that time and just as a parent, try and remember that real life learning happens. It happens in the conversations. It happens at the grocery store. It happens at the bank. They're seeing, they're hearing, and they're learning from it. And just continue doing it. While you're on those breaks, another thing that you can kind of do is talk to your kids. Talk to your kids about what their interests are. Talk to them about why they were so tired every time they came home from school. What was their favorite subject? Like those kind of things. The conversations are going to flow. It really is. And so I feel like you need to find a rhythm once you really start into schooling. You need to find a rhythm. The rhythm's going to help you. And again, if you're like me, I do kind of tend to like structure a little bit more than just kind of going with the flow and getting out of that. I was pretty strict on my schedule first starting out. But, now that I have a 6th grader, an upcoming 6th grade and 4th grader, I'm getting a lot better at it. But you'll find that rhythm, you'll find that flow, and you go with it. And then on days when you have appointments, dentist appointments, doctor's appointments, or mommy doesn't feel good, or one of the kiddos doesn't feel good, take those days and just cuddle, watch an educational video, do read aloud. Again, your homeschooling doesn't have to look like traditional school. I guess so. The biggest takeaway, and I really hope this episode wasn't confusing because with deschooling, my mind just wants to go here, there, and everywhere. The main takeaways from today's episode of, from public school to homeschool, it's a mindset. It really is. It really is. Take that time to deschool. deschool your kids, deschool yourself. Have patience with them. Keep in mind that it might be tough until you find that rhythm, and don't ever be afraid to close the books. All throughout the year, if your kids are crying or getting upset, it may not be you, it may be the curriculum. It may be, hey, we just need to look at the scope and sequence and kind of make our own plans for the day instead of following the books and see if that helps. You may just need to close the books for a couple days. You'll start seeing those things. You'll start realizing what works, what doesn't work, and where you need to pivot a little bit. But again, I cannot express enough how important deschooling is for your child and for you. So if you found this episode encouraging to you, please share with another homeschool mama who needs to take a deep breath today, or is feeling unsure, or is thinking about homeschooling. Because again, this deschooling is so super important to a successful homeschool journey. So if you guys have questions, or if these new families that you're sharing these videos with have questions, please come find me. I am Homeschool Mom on the Farm. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. I love celebrating wins with you guys. I love offering up encouragement, and I love walking through these homeschool journeys with you. And just know I am sharing this because I have been there and I needed help and I found the help, and it was almost life-changing to our homeschool journey. And that's what I'm trying to help you guys with. I want to make sure that everything in your transitions all run smoothly. And so if I can offer you a piece of advice, that's what I'm trying to do. Because honestly, it really is a beautiful day to homeschool.